So, inclusion in entrepreneurship is not just something that is important, it is something that
Mm,
is necessary.
mm-hmm,
Um, we need entrepreneurs to bring innovation, but also progress, societal progress
mm,
to our economy and our society at large. So, if we exclude important groups in the entrepreneurship field in
mm.
being able to bring their innovative products and services to the market, if we exclude a large portion of potential entrepreneurs, that's simply something that we are overlooking for not only economic progress but also societal progress.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So basically, we rob ourselves from the chance to be more innovative and to create a better world.
Yeah, exactly. And we simply overlooking some untapped
Yeah.
resources in
Yeah.
our economy that can be leveraged to create a better future for ourselves.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk Jan Upkes, and on this podcast, I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases, and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for listening to episode 78. As a regular listener, you probably agree that bringing men into the game is crucial when it comes to making diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech the new normal by the end of 2032. But doing so is easier said than done, especially if there's not enough high quality data available. This is where today's guest comes in. Katty Hsu is the Inclusive Entrepreneurship and Research Lead at the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship, or ECE. In 2021, she and her team launched SHELEADS Plus, an organization that empowers women entrepreneurs through inclusive research and education. On this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, Katty and I go deep on the importance of data in getting men to work on gender equality. By listening to this episode, you'll discover the importance of good quality data in discussions on diversity and inclusion, the importance of building connections and collaborations in the ecosystem, and the importance of the willingness to have these really uncomfortable discussions about gender inequality. Plus, you'll be the first to get insights from the She Leads Plus report, which will be made public at the annual She Leads Plus event on 29 November 2024. So, when you're ready to listen and learn how we can move towards a gender equal future in entrepreneurship through data and collaboration, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Katty Hsu. Hey, Katty Hsu, welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. Good to have you. Um, Question I always ask at the start is how you got into your current job. So, floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Darkian. Great to be here. Well, how I got to where I am now, of course, there's a lot of steps before that. I was born in Taiwan and raised in South Africa.
Mm-hmm,
After graduating from my bachelor's degree in politics, philosophy, and economics, I wanted to further pursue a master's in economics,
mm-hmm,
and I had several options. And one of them was, of course, the Erasmus School of Economics, where I decided to come just for 1 year. The plan was actually just to come for 1 year and then perhaps go back to South Africa. But here I
yeah.
am, over 6 years later, almost going into my seventh year already in the country. And of course, the economics faculty is quite big at Erasmus, and there were lots of options that we could choose from. I chose
Mm-hmm,
specifically strategy economics, which focused on economics of innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's
mm-hmm.
how I then learned about the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship, where I currently am working at. at as the inclusive entrepreneurship and research lead. So
Okay, cool.
yeah, that's how I got here in a very short
Yeah.
summary.
So you are Taiwanese born, but you were raised in South Africa. How did
Exactly.
that happen?
Yeah, so actually, back then in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a trade relation between Taiwan and South Africa, which gave
Mm-hmm.
some favorable conditions for my parents, Taiwanese parents, to start a company in South Africa.
Okay.
So entrepreneurship is also in my roots, as
Yeah.
well as immigration, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents moved to South Africa around the time I was born to start their own company that they're still running today.
Okay. And what type of company are they running? Out of
They are
curiosity.
mostly in, yeah, of course, they are in import and exporting. So initially they
Mm-hmm.
imported goods from Taiwan to sell
Mm-hmm.
in South Africa. And then a few years after they launched, that's when the Chinese economy started growing. So now mostly they export goods from China to import into South Africa, and they sell that on a wholesale and retail basis. They sell a lot
Uh-huh.
of different types of goods, but the main market is actually party supplies. So basically, if you can think of, paper cups, paper plates, balloons. Actually, one of their
Mm-hmm.
biggest revenue streams is through helium balloons. South
Ah,
Africans really like to party, so
yeah.
yeah, that's a short summary of what they do.
Okay, cool. And does that help you in your current job that your parents are actually also entrepreneurial?
Yeah, definitely. I actually have quite an unconventional, of course, upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
as my parents were entrepreneurs in a very new country. They also brought me to their business trips when I was a child. So I have, from my earliest memory in my childhood, I remember going with them to the warehouses, to the markets, and also already learning how to negotiate with suppliers and different factories to see what is the best type of sales stream, for example. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my mom already started training me from very young in trade and in sales. So
Uh-huh.
I think she also used me in a sense to her negotiation process, in the sense that I think when you speak to different clients or suppliers, when you have a little girl with you, sometimes it actually helps.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine that it in some cases actually does work wonders, especially if you're selling party supplies.
Exactly. So I was
Mm.
very lucky as a kid. Actually, I had endless amounts of toys and all of these things to play with straight from the factory, actually.
Okay, where those, out of curiosity, were those a bit more tech toys or dolls?
They've changed. Of course, it's been
Mm-hmm.
over 3 decades that they've been working on this, so they've changed their the type of goods that they sold. So when I was a child, there were some dolls. I remember some of the more soft kind of plush toys that they
Mm-hmm.
call it. So
Mm-hmm.
teddy bears, usually the big five animals, wild animals that's more
Yep.
relevant to the South African markets.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they have a wide range of different types of toys, but mostly party supplies today.
Okay. And why did you decide to go to the Netherlands to study for a year?
I had a lot of options actually.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about the US. In Europe, I had Belgium, Netherlands, or Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and honestly, it was a combination of the study program, which was quite unique because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the other schools were mostly um, offering economics in a very general basis, while this was very
Mm-hmm.
specialized in strategy,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on entrepreneurship and innovation, which I was very much interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I came on a trip to visit the Netherlands before I made my decision, and um,
Mm-hmm.
the let's say the ease of getting around, the convenience, but also mostly the environment kind of felt a little bit more in line with the culture that I grew up with in South Africa. So that really helped me make my decision at the end of the day.
Cool. And then after a year, you decided to stay?
Yeah, exactly. It was so um, around the time it was just before COVID, actually.
Mhm.
And I also felt like I didn't, let's say, 1 year flies by so quickly. So, of course, felt like I didn't know the country enough. I was mostly
Mhm.
focused on my studies. There was so much more to learn and to see.
Mhm.
And I got the opportunity to join the team at the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship, ECE.
Mhm.
And yeah, I started a research position, and then I'm still there today.
Yeah.
And that was just over
Okay.
5 years ago now.
Okay. Cool. Um, so tell me how you the bridge you can build between entrepreneurship and innovation on the one hand, and then going into more the diversity and inclusion part that you're in now.
Yeah. So I actually, when I started, we were, yeah, around 5 years old as a center.
Mm-hmm.
So we're basically a knowledge valorization center, part of Erasmus University Rotterdam. We
Mm-hmm.
publish several different types of insights reports, from scaling up to entrepreneurial ecosystems.
Mm-hmm.
But when I joined, there was not a lot of data on women in entrepreneurship, or in general in the DEI space. Not a lot of numbers, or let's say even interest back then from the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Have you seen
joined.
that change?
Mhm. Yes,
Have
I
you seen
have.
that change, by the way?
Yeah, so much has changed since I joined. So just over within, let's say, 5 years already, so much has changed in the entrepreneurship industry. Um, so one of them was, of course, the opportunity to join the project team of SHELEADS. Back then, we didn't have a name
Mm-hmm.
for this project. It was basically um, empowering women entrepreneurial leaders, and we did
Mm-hmm.
that through a small subsidy project from thanks to the Erasmus Trust funds,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the Ondernemen de Vrouwen funds and the Young Ondernemerschap funds.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of successful alumni, entrepreneurs, and leaders got together to basically support us in kickstarting a what I thought back then was just going to be a project on collecting data about women in entrepreneurship, and uh, learning more about their stories to basically make sure that also the entrepreneurship courses and the educational insights that we share to our community, both
Mm-hmm.
at the student level but also at the professional level, can be more inclusive. So we set out to start writing a teaching case, and also to basically upgrade our database to make it
Mm-hmm.
more gender disaggregated and to find more insights about women in entrepreneurship. And that was in 2021. And basically, the project ended last year in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we noticed that I learned so much in the 2 years of leading this project as the researcher,
Mm-hmm.
but also as the project manager. We learned that there is not enough data, of course, at least good quality
Mm-hmm.
data. We already published several insights reports and dashboards before then, but this was one of the most challenging research projects that I've worked on in my
Okay.
career, actually.
Why is data important in the
Well,
for to get, let's say, the entrepreneurial space more diverse?
yeah, so I think in general, if we don't have any research insights or data, we don't have, let's say, numbers to back up our decisions and strategy as individuals, but also as ecosystem supporters. So without
Mm-hmm.
the data, the fact that we need to support more women in entrepreneurship is then not really a fact. It's merely an opinion.
Yeah.
And if we have the numbers and we can share the facts, then it brings the sense of urgency that we all need to address. Then it gets more people on board, rather than those who are really, facing the struggles and the challenges themselves, but to get the broader ecosystem
Yeah.
involved. So that's why we see research as being a very important element of this.
Okay. And you also pointed out that you do a lot of education, or that at least the research also fuels the education that you do. How does that work?
Yeah. When I was, if I reflect on back when I was a student, but also just a few years ago, most of the teaching cases and the stories and the learnings that students really use in the
Mm,
classroom are mostly the typical for-profit white male-run organization.
mm-hmm,
So part of this project was actually to make sure that a lot of the teaching cases can be diversified, but also adapted to make it so that students can actually resonate, regardless of their gender, to these
yeah.
stories, to really motivate them. And through education, then individuals can actually build confidence, especially because there are a lot of studies showcasing that women tend to underestimate themselves. So having more education about how to, let's say, be entrepreneurial, or how to be more in a leadership position, that can really help through education.
Mm-hmm,
Um, and of course, not only for women, but for key stakeholders in the ecosystem. With with research-backed education, then they can
mm,
actually be held accountable and take action to help improve the ecosystem.
yeah. Yeah, but it also, yeah, I think also for the students, it's really important to see themselves in the position as an entrepreneur, be that in tech or elsewhere. And if you
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
see that, let's say, in front of the classroom through a female professor, or through the materials that reflect that women can also be entrepreneurs, and that there's not just your average white male. Well, I wouldn't call it average, but your standard white male for-profit company.
Yeah.
If you see that there's more, that makes it. I can understand it makes it more inclusive and also more appealing to women to want to start a company.
Yeah, exactly. So with more role models in the
Yeah.
classroom, but also out the classroom, if you just see that it is possible to be an entrepreneur, be a leader, through the
Mhm.
examples of others, that can already empower the next generation to start thinking about this as an option, if they would like to do so, and to really close the confidence gap too.
Okay. Talking about confidence, I is there also a part of being connected? So having the right connections
Yeah,
in the ecosystem
yeah,
that you
definitely.
can facilitate.
Yeah, so actually, if you look at, for example, within our ecosystem, we have quite a
Mm,
unique position, really at the intersection between academia and industry. Um,
mhm,
of course, having the university means that we have a wealth of data and knowledge,
mhm,
um, while we still struggle, let's say, to have good quality data that is gender disaggregated and harmonized across sectors, across geographies. And what we
mhm,
notice with researchers, for example, but also with other types of policymakers, ecosystem supporters, is that there is this connection gap in the sense that there
mhm,
are a lot of duplicated efforts, um, be it a research topic that is being duplicated,
mhm.
rather than building on the valuable initiatives that are already happening.
Yeah,
So, of course, duplication is important because then we validate that this is an issue.
yeah,
While
yeah.
there
It's
can be
not just
more,
one study.
yeah, exactly. So we're already see multiple studies
Huh?
really validating and confirming the fact that we need to empower more women and entrepreneurs,
Mhm,
more women in entrepreneurship specifically for our economy and society at large. But what we see when it comes to the connection between the initiatives, that's where there is something missing. So we have
Mm-hmm.
these siloed initiatives really doing a great job supporting different people from marginalized backgrounds.
Uh-huh.
But there is still a lot of work to be done to really coordinate these existing efforts so that we can work together to achieve the similar goal of really working towards gender equality.
Okay. And what would be the first step we need to take as, let's say, as an ecosystem to make
Yeah.
that to build to start? Is it because it's in part, I think, about collaboration.
hmm Yes, for
But
sure. So I think it's difficult to have like one way or one step, but I think it's
Mhm,
important just to have a quick scan of what's going on in the ecosystem, and actually learn from each other and find ways to collaborate rather than compete. Because I don't find it necessary, let's say, to see fellow ecosystem supporters as competition because we have a long way to go when it comes to gender equality. And if we don't work together, then it will likely take about 134 years, according to the World Economic Forum, at least,
mhm,
to really reach gender equality and economic participation. Um,
yeah.
so I think the first step is to see how we can collaborate together because one individual project or entity, um, let's say, cannot achieve the goal of gender equality alone. While it's
Mhm,
important to find how we can build on each other's initiatives rather than start something completely from scratch and duplicate what's going on.
yeah.
So I think that's one way to kind of see it is to encourage more coordinated efforts across the ecosystem, both on a local and
Ah,
global
okay.
level.
And how does She Leads and the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship play into this? How
Yeah, so
is there some initiatives to actually facilitate the collaboration?
yes, exactly. So She Leads Plus
Mm,
actually emerged earlier this year.
mhm,
We grew She Leads the Netherlands into She Leads Plus to firstly
mhm,
close the gaps that we were talking about earlier. So to close the gender
mhm,
data gap, but also the gap in the ecosystem regarding more meaningful connections.
mhm,
And what we see our role as actually to close these gaps through a coordinated effort with with our new global foundation that we are working on.
okay.
And we are through this She Leads Plus Global Foundation, we are looking at building a She Leads Plus global community with already
Mhm,
at the moment we have almost 10 countries represented with pioneering partners and ambassadors
mhm,
basically to empower women worldwide, but at the same time to learn from the different ecosystems how we can support each other on a local level. So we
mhm,
basically see it as a twofold approach. Firstly, how can we learn from other ecosystems what they are doing? Because if you look at, for example, sub-Saharan Africa, there are so many women entrepreneurs. Of course, the context is completely different, but
yeah.
the rate of women in entrepreneurship is a lot higher, and we can learn from how to encourage more coordinated support on a local level. For example, in Uganda, we have a partner there who we are looking to specifically support the women in the agri space.
Mhm,
And our role is to actually co-finance and collaborate on projects on the ground. So
yeah.
to ensure that there is a local impact, but on a global scale.
Mhm,
And at the same time, we also see, for example, in Indonesia,
mhm,
there is a very big coastal community, and that
mhm,
means there's also a marginalized coastal community, mainly the women who are the fishermen's wives, usually,
yeah.
but they have a lot of untapped potential that we're looking into supporting at the moment. Um,
Okay.
So this is how we are looking ahead to see how we can build a global SHELEADS Plus community to
Mm-hmm.
learn from each other, but also to continue closing the gap in data, as well
Yeah.
as the gaps in the ecosystem regarding to coordinated efforts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I understand. And then also really bring best practices to different parts of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so how do you prevent then the what I call not invented here syndrome? So, okay, this may work in sub-Saharan Africa, but it doesn't work in the Netherlands or it doesn't work in Indonesia. How do you prevent that from happening?
Yeah, so that's actually why we have this approach with pioneering partners,
Mm-hmm.
where they are from these countries. So we have Indonesian partners, we have Ugandan partners on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
working on these projects, while we, as She Leads Plus Global Foundation, work as the facilitator and coordinator. While we are not going there, for example, to showcase. Um, our work as She Leads Plus in the Netherlands over
Mm-hmm.
the past almost 4 years. Um, we are merely helping, facilitating the process through our network so that we can actually co finance and
Yeah.
collaborate and bring more hands on the ground on these important projects. Um, so that's how we work. So we need pioneering partners to actually understand the local context on
Mm-hmm.
then we know how we can bring that, for example, to these regions and adapt the type of support we've been working on here in the Netherlands and really tailor that to the culture and the needs of the local context.
Okay. So, how do you select these pioneering partners? Do you do that yourself, or is that sort of people come to you and then you have a discussion on how you can make it work?
Yeah, so at the moment, we have a very simple form to fill in to become a pioneering partner. While
Mm-hmm.
we actually notice that the best approach currently with our most active pioneering partners and ambassadors are
Uh-huh.
basically through attending events and networking sessions where we see that these partners are already working on something already. So we basically build on what infrastructure and what support they have already and create this knowledge
Ah, yeah.
community together. Um, so it's about what already exists and how we can build on that as well.
Okay. So you basically take what's there anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. I want to shift gears a bit because
Mm-hmm.
this show is about how do we get more women into tech, which is
Yes.
more, let's say, it's also an inclusion play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, so, from your background, how important is inclusion in entrepreneurship?
So inclusion in entrepreneurship is not just something that is important, it is something that is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we need entrepreneurs to bring innovation, but also progress, societal progress
Mm-hmm.
to our economy and our society at large. So, if we exclude important groups in the entrepreneurship field, in
Mm-hmm.
being able to bring their innovative products and services to the market, if we exclude a large portion of potential entrepreneurs, that's simply something that we are overlooking for not only economic progress but also societal progress. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So basically, we rob ourselves from the chance to be more innovative and to create a better world.
yeah, exactly. And we simply overlooking some
Uh,
untapped resources in
uh,
our economy that can be leveraged to create a better future for ourselves.
okay. Um, how um, how can men get involved in this? Because that's a bit my thesis, so you will,
Hmm.
that men are not involved as much as they could be and should be. And I was wondering, how can we get more men into this game?
Yeah, I think what is important is to perhaps go back to the point we were discussing earlier is
Mm,
the importance of research and addressing the gender data gap.
mm-hmm,
So men tend to want
mm,
to see numbers, the hard facts,
yeah,
and rely a little bit less on emotional factors.
uh-huh,
So with convincing and good quality numbers, but also with the willingness to have these uncomfortable conversations with
mm,
all stakeholders who tend to be more privileged in the
mm,
ecosystem, then we're able to work together to contribute to gender equality because gender equality is not only about women, it's about men as well.
yeah, yeah,
So the if you look at for example, the effects of our current system, which
mm,
is primarily patriarchal, at least in Western Europe, that
yeah,
has effects on the male population. So if we
like,
don't let's say we have the concepts of toxic masculinity.
mm-hmm,
So if you see, for example, uh, a lot of men are often raised, depending on, of course, their background,
mm,
uh, often raised to think, I'm a boy, I shouldn't cry, I shouldn't show my emotions. Um,
mm-hmm,
but then bottling up all of that as you grow up can have consequences on your career. It can have consequences on how you interact with society, and not being able to show vulnerability can, in the long term, let's say, hamper your leadership skills and your entrepreneurial skills in a way.
but also
So
your health.
yes, your mental health, for sure.
Yeah,
That's a really
no,
big
also your
point.
physical,
Yeah.
actually also your physical health, because if you keep cropping up all the negative emotions, basically at some point what goes in has to come out.
Yeah, exactly. So
Uh,
that's adding too much stress to
yeah,
your physical body as well.
yeah,
Indeed. So um I think it's about changing the narrative, of course, to include more women, but at the same time, not forgetting about the important role that men play in
mm-hmm,
shaping gender equality.
yeah. So and what is their role, their natural role?
Men,
Yeah,
their natural role in the
yeah,
ecosystem, or
yeah,
in
yeah.
well, I would say as for example in the SHELEADS Plus ecosystem,
Mm-hmm,
I think it's really important to have the voices of men advocate for
mm-hmm,
women, because it's difficult, let's say, uh, for groups of people who are so, biologically different.
mm-hmm,
If you really separate them, that it doesn't work. Let's say when we want to contribute to gender equality.
mm-hmm,
So if you look at sociology, there's a lot of insights showcasing intergroup dynamics. So if you bring, for example, one man within a group of women, he can already, let's say, engage in these types of uncomfortable conversations about how
mm-hmm,
to um, work on bringing together more allyship.
mm-hmm,
And then he can bring it back to the group of men who, let's say, have more of a similar characteristics with them. And it might be
mm-hmm,
more convincing for a group of men if it comes from him rather than a woman initially.
yeah,
So that's one way to, let's say, involve men to show that they have the circle of influence that they can help tap into to contribute to gender
mm-hmm,
equality. But at the same time, I think if there is a way to pull together resources, because at the moment men tend to have more resources, be it
mm-hmm,
financial, network, or so on, to
mm-hmm,
allocate a small portion of resources to contribute to the cause, then that's already something.
yeah. Yeah, I think that especially contributing your own resources is really important. So I want to go back a bit to what moves the needle for men, and you talked
Mm-hmm.
about the importance of data. We also discussed that you have a report coming up, the
Mm-hmm.
SHELEADS plus Insights Report. Um, so, can you talk to me about? Can you share some insights from that?
Yes, of course. So the report will be launched on the 29th of November
Yeah.
at our event, our annual event, with the theme towards a gender equal future in entrepreneurship through
Mm-hmm.
data, dialogue, and support. And this is also the title of our report, as we showcase
Yeah.
not only data, but also a Q&A dialogue from outstanding women entrepreneurs in the ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
as well as ways that we can support the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And some specifically interesting numbers to share with the community is that the top five industries of women founded or co-founded companies in the Netherlands
Mm-hmm.
are health, enterprise software, energy, tech, and food and beverage.
Mm-hmm.
And these are historically, let's say, also the industries that women tend to gravitate towards. So
Okay.
this is, I think, something to showcase. Let's say, of course, this type of insights are based on numbers. For example, that's quite limited sample. So this is from deal room data. But we
Mm-hmm.
do see that, at least based on last year's numbers, and if you look more historically in the past century, actually,
Mm-hmm.
there are women who were involved in the coding industry
Yeah.
a long time ago. That people tend to overlook this fact.
Yeah.
And now, if you think of a coder, often you think of a man, but hopefully, this also changes the biases and the norms that we have in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. About the female coders. Actually, one of the first coders was a woman.
Exactly.
Charles Babbage, and had a female assistant who actually did
Most, yeah,
most of the not building, because Babbage built it, but then his assistant actually did most of the documentation of the system, essentially writing the first piece of software
yeah, exactly.
for a machine that was at that point uh, not yet based. So yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of there's a whole blog about that, women who built the internet. So there's a top five of women, of industries that women found or co-found companies in. There's health, there's enterprise software. I guess that's your average SaaS
Yeah,
company. One thing that struck me is energy.
yeah.
Is that climate
Um,
related?
it's the energy sector in general, but we also specifically dive into the
Hmm.
energy transition. So we
Ah.
look at the numbers and the energy transition,
Hmm.
but also in general, if you look at the SDGs,
Hmm.
women tend to tackle more SDGs on average than men. Um, and
Hmm.
this also specifically applies to the SDGs that relates to the energy transition as well.
Okay, so it's related to climate change and preventing, or well, at least reducing the impact of climate change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There in that space, I actually do know a couple of women, female founders. So another insight I saw, or that we discussed, is that women in deep tech, if women co-found a company in deep tech, they actually tend to have a higher growth score and they get more funding.
Yes, exactly.
Uh, if I understand correctly, this means that if I have two deep tech companies, so one is only founded by men and one is co-founded by a woman, the growth score is better, which is in line with general statistics that companies with women or with a diverse team have a better performance, but they also attract more funding. Any insights into
That's
how
yeah.
that?
So actually, the comparison is between deep tech,
Mm,
women co-founded companies, and the
mm,
general sample of women companies. So that means non-deep tech. So not comparing to men.
okay.
Unfortunately, if you compare to men, it is it is a lot lower. But if you look within the
Okay.
industry in general,
Mm,
there is, of course, a lot more funding in deep tech, as well as a lot more growth within deep tech.
yeah.
So this is at least something that I think is a good insight, especially because of all the structural barriers we have in the tech space when it comes
Mm,
to getting women involved.
okay. Um, you briefly already mentioned that you have an upcoming annual event
Yeah,
where you're going to present the entire report, and also going. I think you're going to launch the global foundation there, right?
exactly.
Yeah. So tell me a bit more about this event.
Yeah, so this event is really about bringing together the local ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
It is partially sponsored by the municipality of Rotterdam. So thanks to the
Mm-hmm.
support of Gemeente Rotterdam, as well as some university experts who are contributing to the insights reports, as well as the event, it is a Rotterdam event. And of course, the location itself is also at Plum House, which is the largest law firm in the city as well.
Mm-hmm.
The theme is all about bringing together different types of parts of the ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
specifically through data, dialogue, and support. I mentioned earlier as well, it's towards a gender equal future in entrepreneurship,
Mm-hmm.
but also how we work with our events in general is to actually bring together different players in the ecosystem to host their own workshops.
Ah,
So
okay.
of course, we are organizing the event as ECE, as the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship, while we have input from entrepreneurs, industry experts across the ecosystem. This includes intersectionality workshop, taking space as a female entrepreneur by Female Ventures.
Mm-hmm.
I think what is one of the most valuable parts of our events in general, as we look backwards, this is will be the fourth annual event,
Mm-hmm.
and every year we have the same setup when it comes to the tailored mentor matchmaking sessions, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that we have the speed dating setup where we have students and aspiring entrepreneurs in a set up to really have their pressing questions answered when it comes to entrepreneurship and leadership with experienced entrepreneurs and industry leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we always look forward to facilitating. This is the first time we will also have a dedicated online session for our global community,
Ah, yeah.
and also looking at our Visioning Inclusive Entrepreneurship Network. We're a partner of Code V,
Mm-hmm.
so the initiative in the Netherlands, part of the World Bank We Finance initiative to hold financial institutions accountable in collecting data about how they support women entrepreneurs. Um, we have basically a spin-off network of researchers who are coming together to work together
Mm-hmm.
at our events as well. And we have, of course, navigating venture capital, specifically by a venture capital firm, Arkeys, and also a workshop on unleashing the potential of women with immersive tech. So yeah, there's a lot of
That
different
sounds
parallel
cool.
sessions that
Yeah.
that people can join, and of course, this will all happen after the report launch that was mentioned, as well as two keynotes, one from an entrepreneur from Rotterdam.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Esther Smith from the Oxshire Talent Factory. She has a social enterprise B Corp certified a textile startup. And
Mm-hmm.
also the managing director of Triodos Bank will close our event. Pauline Bieringer. She has a
Hmm.
lot of experience both in leadership as well as being entrepreneurial in the financial sector.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
sounds like
that's
a
a
ve-
yeah,
sounds like a really interesting lineup.
exactly. We
So
are very
this is
excited.
November 29th in
Yes,
Rotterdam, and I guess there's a website
yeah,
where people can find more information.
exactly.
Okay, and we'll include that in the show notes. I want to close with a question I always ask at to all the people who are my guests is how can we make DEI the new normal in tech by the end of 2032? So diversity, equity, and inclusion. How can we make that the new normal?
Yeah, so that is a very difficult question. I think specifically when we look at what we are doing with SheLeads Plus,
Mm-hmm.
um, the first way, the first step in this big mission to really make DEI the new normal
Mm-hmm.
is to start collecting all of the initiatives that's already existing and
Mm-hmm.
find a way that we can work together to achieve this goal. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the main reasons that Sheelys Plus is existing also as a global foundation is the
Mm-hmm.
importance of a global coordinated effort.
Yeah.
Um, so, how can we make DEI the new normal? Is to really learn from abroad, also share our learnings abroad,
Mm-hmm.
while finding a way to coordinate the existing initiatives. As this is not a simple feat for one initiative, one organization.
Yeah.
To really make this the new normal, we need to work together.
Sounds like a great place to close.
Yeah,
Katty Hsu, thank you very much. If people want to connect with you, where would you like to send them?
you can find me on LinkedIn, and
Mm-hmm.
we will also be launching our new Global Foundation website. And yeah, I will share that also in the show notes. And you can also find me at the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship headquarters in Rotterdam, Microlab, in person if you'd like for coffee.
Okay, cool. Well, hit her up for coffee. I would say if you're in the Netherlands, either for this conference or sometime else. Katty Hsu, thank you very much for an amazing conversation. And listeners, thank you for listening. And until the next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to episode 78 of Women Disrupting Tech on how we can move towards a gender equal future in entrepreneurship through data and collaboration. Katty and I hope that you found our conversation insightful and inspiring. And if you'd like to learn more about Katty, her work at ECE, or She Leads Plus, then you can connect with her via the links in the show notes. In the show notes, you can also find a link to the report titled Towards a Gender Equal Future in Entrepreneurship Through Data, Dialogue and Support, which will be presented on the annual She Leads Plus events on 29th of November 2024. And as usual, you can find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog. On the same website, you can also become a member of the Women Disrupting Tech community. Members get early access to new episodes, and in the weekly newsletter, I'll share with you what I learned from each of the episodes. So check out the show notes for a link. When you're looking for a role model to inspire your own hero's journey in tech, I invite you to check out one of the other episodes of this podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you're a regular listener, please give the show a rating or a review because that way you help other people discover the podcast. If you're a male ally and you want to help the Women Disrupting Tech make this podcast obsolete by the end of 2032, there's a simple thing you can do. Please share the podcast with friends, family, and coworkers because this way you give my guests a platform they need to make it happen. Finally, if you want to connect with me, you can reach me via dirkjan@womendisruptingtech.blog or you can send me a DM on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, simply type in my name and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode. And until then, keep being awesome.